Hello, folks, and welcome to Author Adjacent, a podcast about the journey from hobbyist writer to professional author. I'm your host, Michael Vadney. If you're listening to this, you might not be comfortable calling yourself an author. Even I'm not there yet, but I am Author Adjacent. I started this podcast as a fellow journeyman on the path from writer to author in the hopes that what I have learned along the way will help you fulfill your own dreams. Before we get too into it, just a reminder that Author Adjacent has partnered with Moonlit Getaway, a multi-genre online literary journal set to begin publication on September 23 of 2024. Their grand opening contest is now accepting submissions in the categories of visual art, flash fiction, and poetry. The contest is free to enter, and the deadline for submissions is August 1st of this year. This contest is a great way for author-adjacent writers looking to dip their toe into the world of publication. Visit moonlitgetaway.com for details. I'll have a link in the description if anyone is interested. But now, back to the episode. Seeing how this is releasing on the last day of May, I thought it would be time for another episode of Reading to Write, where I will discuss the books I read in the month of May, give feedback on what I did or did not enjoy about the novel, and share the lessons I learned as an author-adjacent writer. Why do I do this? Well, for a few reasons, really. First, writers are also readers. Aspiring authors benefit tremendously from sharpening their analytical skills. It's another way for us to learn what works in a novel and why. That way we can intentionally craft our stories for success by either following in the footsteps of others or creating some crazy combination of things that just work. And second, because reviews and ratings are important for authors, especially indie authors, as it is often how readers will decide which books they're going to purchase. For every book I go over in this podcast, I leave a review on Goodreads and or Amazon, and I encourage you to do the same. It's an easy way to support these authors. If you don't have the time or gumption to write up a review, a rating is a simple way to show your support. So today, I'll back up these words by providing my reviews and lessons learned from the 5 books I read in May of 2024. These reviews will be spoiler-free, but I will be sharing each story's blurb as seen on Goodreads, so that you have an idea of what I'm talking about. I invite you to check out any of these books that capture your interest, and please forgive any of my mispronunciations. At this point, I think we all know that fantasy and sci-fi words are hard to say sometimes, so thanks. By complete accident, I ended up reading 5 indie books this month, with 4 of them being debut novels. Just a crazy random happenstance that I'm not mad about. But without any more delay, let's dive in. The first book I read in May was The Eye of the Bedlam Bride by Matt Dinniman. A pantheon of forgotten gods, an old grudge between a talk show host, an heiress, and a man they shattered along the way. A rapidly deteriorating AI system, an inconvenient tiara upon the head of a friend. It's a bedlam on the 8th floor. As management reels from the unexpected conclusion of the 7th level, the surviving crawlers stumble into the 8th and find themselves scattered. It's a map based on Earth's final days before the collapse, where the ethereal, intangible ghosts of humanity go about their lives, oblivious of the impending doom. Living amongst these ghosts are monsters based on Earth's lore, legendary creatures tied to geographical locations they inhabit. Each team of crawlers is given a task: find and capture 6 of these beasts. The captured monsters will be turned into cards that can be summoned into battle again and again. The stronger, the deadlier, the better. At the end of the floor, the bad guys will have decks, and they will have some of the most powerful cards available, so it's crucial to assemble the toughest squad possible. But like always, there's a catch. There's always a catch. As Carl and Donut know all too well, just because someone is captured, it doesn't mean they have been tamed. Her name is She-Maria. She's easily the most powerful monster in the area. If they want to survive, they must capture her. But she is no ordinary beast. She's intelligent. She has once married to a god who is now missing. Her special attack is known to drive one insane. They call her the Bedlam Bride. Beware, beware, beware the eye of the Bedlam Bride. That's right, I'm still doing goofy narrator voices for all these. Enjoy! Before I get into this review, I want to say, 1, that blurb was long, and 2, it makes it sound like this book is so much about the cards and the deck system and hunting down the monster and everything like that. There is so much more that happens here. Another great addition to the series. At first, I thought this entire book was going to be a slowdown or a reset of the tension and stakes as Carl and Donut prepared for the next floor, which, in my opinion, is a necessary move. Otherwise, the reader gets fatigued from everything being bigger and badder than the thing that just happened 5 minutes ago. See Game of Thrones television show if you need an example. But this lull in the tension and stakes was just long enough to cleanse the reader's palate from the crazy ending of the last book. Matt Dinniman manages to juggle and weave many layers of conflict and story so that each percolates in the background until the moment when it comes to the forefront of the story. Then, it either concludes or evolves in a way that always adds to the enjoyment of the reader. It is a skill that has kept Dungeon Crawler Carl's story so fresh after 6 books. The Eye of the Bedlam Bride adds so many layers, twists, and turns to the story that feel organic and natural as they progress. This is especially true in how he never uses what I like to call cheap drama. I use this term to refer to a situation where there is a clear resolution to a conflict that doesn't occur simply because characters refuse to talk to one another. This is a spoiler-free review, so I won't go into details, but Dinniman had a potential cheap drama triangle between Carl, Donut, and Katya. Instead of milking it for all it was worth and then some, like many lesser books, he had the characters talk the situation out, which in reality and in stories is so much harder and filled with so much more conflict. I'd like to qualify that this cheap drama that I'm speaking of doesn't really apply to situations when there actually is a good reason for characters not to talk to each other. And fear of rejection can be a very good reason for a character, especially if they have a history of such rejection. Now that I have sung the praises of this book from the mountaintop, I do need to address a growing problem that I have noticed in the series, as it has reared its ugly head multiple times in the Eye of the Bedlam Bride. Deliberately keeping information from the reader. This may be a personal preference, but I find it to be a weak move when an author intentionally showcases that a character knows something without telling the reader what that something is. Either a character mentally or verbally dances around the subject without saying what it is, or scenes are arranged in flashbacks to show how characters have a certain item or power that is convenient to the current situation. It's something that can be successfully done in small doses, as Dinniman has displayed in previous novels,
big ways that,
but the Eye of the Bedlam Bride makes use of this technique multiple times in... My last point is a mixed bag, as there were 2 instances in the story where there was a lot of build-up for a moment that ended up being almost nothing. I say a mixed bag because in one instance the result turned into a greater climactic moment for the book that was wholly unexpected, while the other fizzled into disappointment. For the latter, it didn't help that the literal in-world galaxy from the dungeon AI to the viewers of Dungeon Crawler World were all saying, "Hey, this is a big deal!" Then, nothing. I'm hoping this is a small disappointment that will come back to be pertinent in a later book. Otherwise, I'm not really sure why it was added to the story. Despite these setbacks, The Eye of the Bedlam Bride by Matt Dinniman is another fantastic addition to the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and I'm eagerly awaiting the next book. If you listened to last month's episode when I went over April's books, woof, you know I'm a huge fan of this series. There's a lot to learn from reading this book and the Dungeon Crawler series as a whole, but I think the 2 greatest takeaways are 1, avoid cheap drama by resolving conflicts through character interactions rather than through misunderstandings or avoidance. And 2, build up to significant moments should lead to satisfying resolutions. If a plot point is emphasized as crucial, ensure that it has a meaningful payoff. Unresolved buildups can lead to disappointment unless they clearly serve a larger purpose in the overall narrative. My second read of May was Among Thieves by M.J. Kuhn. In just over a year's time, Rhea has already earned herself a reputation as the quickest, deadliest blade in the dockside city of Kerouic, not to mention the sharpest tongue. But Rhea is not her real name. For the past 6 years, a deadly secret has kept her in hiding, running from town to town, doing whatever it takes to stay one step ahead of the formidable Guildmaster, the sovereign ruler of the 5 kingdoms of Thamor. No matter how far or fast she travels, his servants never fail to track her down, but even the most powerful men can be defeated. Rhea's path now leads directly into the heart of the Guildmaster's stronghold, and against every instinct she has, it's not a path she can walk alone. Forced to team up with a crew of assorted miscreants, smugglers, and thieves, Rhea must plan her next moves very carefully. If she succeeds, her freedom is won once and for all. But unfortunately for Rhea, her new allies are nearly as selfish as she is, and they all have plans of their own. I want to thank you all for humoring me as I threw in a little accent for the drama narrator this time. Among Thieves is the debut novel of M.J. Kuhn. She actually came onto my radar through her podcast, SFF Addicts, which she co-hosts with another indie author that we will be talking about later in this episode. This book is a gripping and fast-paced journey through a fascinating world filled with intrigue and danger. The plot is interesting and undeniably a driving force in the novel, drawing readers into a universe where trust is scarce and alliances are fleeting. The magic system in particular was compelling. It's simple and easy to grasp, but Kuhn managed to make it the focal point of an empire's power that forces all nations to work around it. I'm interested to see how this system continues to affect the political landscape of the setting in the second book. One of the standout aspects of Among Thieves is the witty and snarky dialogue, especially with the main character Rhea. The characters' interactions are laced with sharp humor, making for an engaging read that reminded me of the banter in Firefly, but with a darker edge. Characterization was mixed results in this novel for me. On the one hand, Among Thieves is filled with 5 POVs, and I found it difficult to connect with them all. At first, it was overwhelming as I tried to learn everyone's names and why they were here. While the diverse perspectives add depth to the story, they sometimes create confusion, making it difficult to keep track of who is who and their individual motivations. The cast is complex, and each character harboring their own shades of gray and plans to betray the others, which in most cases can be summed up to a single breath. This combination of gray morality and shallow backstory made it difficult for me to connect with most of the characters. While most of this was easily glossed over by the enjoyable, fast-paced plot, Cal, the leader of the gang that all these characters belong to, truly felt like a misfire to me. I wanted to like him so much because he's touted throughout the book as this legendary badass, but is a bit of a letdown. Despite the frequent mentions of his prowess, the narrative doesn't provide enough evidence for moments to showcase his skills, leaving me to question why he has this reputation. On the other hand, Rhea and Evelyn were fantastic reads, whom I enjoyed learning about through their dialogue and actions. Despite the wide cast, these two felt like main characters, as they were both well fleshed out with clear motivations and growth throughout the story. In a sea of gray, they become truly worthy of rooting for. Their development is more pronounced, and their arcs are more satisfying, suggesting that the story might have benefited from a stronger focus on just them. Despite the drawbacks I've mentioned, Among Thieves is an enjoyable read for anyone looking for a fun fantasy heist novel with some edge to it. The witty dialogue, the fast-paced action, and twisting plot drive the story. But it's Rhea and Evelyn who will draw me into a sequel. In keeping with the pattern I established in the first review, I will have 2 takeaways that I learned as an author-adjacent writer from reading Among Thieves. First is that engaging dialogue is a great way to enhance character interaction while showcasing a character's personality and growth. And second, characters benefit from well-defined motivations and backstories as it helps readers connect with them. My third read of May was The Bleeding Stone by Joseph John Lee. The island nation of Fernandez is the jewel of the Agrarian kingdom, and its founder, Aritz Amata, is revered as a god amongst men. But 25 years ago, Aritz was merely a man, a colonizer, an invader, seeking glory and fame in the name of his king and queen. And Ferranda was a nameless union of indigenous tribes, reverent of the heightened powers and aptitudes granted to them by the animal deities, but sundered by the foreigners claiming their lands to the south. In the unconquered north, the Stone Tribe has for 15 years offered a safe haven for the southern tribes, displaced by Aritz invaders, whose occupying march north has been ostensibly halted by the dense forest barrier dividing north and south. Among the Stone people lives Sen, an outcast for the circumstances of her birth, preserved in society only by her status as the daughter of her tribe's chief. Forever relegated to the fringes of society, she is forced to watch as countless of her kin, including her sister and brother, complete their rites of passage into adulthood, and accordingly earn their aptitudes by the deity to whom they share an affinity, the bear, the wolf, or the owl. Despite this, Sen finds comfort in her life of forced solitude with her close inner circle, but hers is a comfort in days of waning tenuous peace. When Arit's technologically advanced forces push north, Sen is thrust into a singular quest to rescue one of her precious few captured in the ensuing struggle. While her goal is earnest, save someone dear to her and prove her worth to the tribe, her people's goal is far more dire: survive in the face of uncertainty. The Bleeding Stone is the debut novel of Joseph John Lee. This fantasy tale begins strong with a deep dive into family drama that skillfully establishes the backdrop and motivations of the characters before moving on to the central conflict. Lee's approach to characterization is commendable, as each character is distinct and interesting, contributing to a rich and immersive environment. One of the novel's notable strengths is the world building. Lee has created a vivid and compelling universe that serves as an excellent foundation for the story. The magic system and political landscape give the impression of an intricate design without telling the reader the recipe, adding layers of depth and intrigue. This careful construction of the world helps ground the reader, making the fantastical elements feel real and consequential. However, the structure of the novel presents a double-edged sword. The narrative frequently jumps around the timeline, which has both positive and negative effects, in my opinion. On one hand, these jumps create a sense of tension as the readers are aware that certain characters will survive to appear in the future timelines, despite their actions in the present. This knowledge adds a layer of dramatic irony as we watch the characters struggle, knowing that they are destined to fail to some degree. On the other hand, this same structure can detract from the suspense, as it sometimes feels like the ending is given away or the story is steering towards a predictable conclusion. It left me with mixed feelings on the concept that I've been unable to resolve weeks later. Another point of contention is the book's role within the larger series. The Bleeding Stone often feels more like a prologue rather than a standalone novel. Much of the narrative is dedicated to setting up future events, which can be both a strength and a weakness. For readers who enjoy a slow burn, detailed setup, this can be very satisfying. However, those looking for immediate payoff might find the conclusion lacking in resolution. The book ends with the feeling that this is just the beginning, an inciting incident for a larger story yet to come. For some readers, this will be an exciting start to the series, but I was left wondering about the novel's conclusion. Despite these structural critiques, Lee's prose is a highlight. The writing is clean, polished, and at times beautifully poetic. It's hard to believe this is a debut novel given the level of artisanship displayed. The dialogue is sharp, with a good balance of wit and seriousness that suits the tone of the story. The pacing, while slow at times, allows for thorough character development and exploration of the novel's themes. The Bleeding Stone is a promising start to what appears to be a compelling series. While the structure and pacing may not appeal to all readers, those who appreciate detailed world-building, complex characters, and a slow-burn narrative will find much to enjoy. The novel sets up numerous plot threads and character arcs, leaving readers curious about how the story will unfold in future installments. Despite my reservations, I am eager to see where this series goes next. My two takeaways from reading The Bleeding Stone are 1. The use of non-linear timelines can add tension and complexity, but also presents challenges. Lee's method of jumping around the timeline creates suspense, but may also reveal too much about the plot's outcome. Aspiring writers like myself can learn to balance between creating tension and maintaining mystery. And 2. The power of pacing. This novel is a slow burn, akin to a drama rather than an action-packed thriller. This demonstrates the importance of pacing and how different speeds can suit different genres and story types. My fourth read of May was Mushroom Blues by Adrian M. Gibson. 2 years after a devastating defeat in a decade-long spore war, the island nation of Hopan and its capital city of Neo-Kinoko are occupied by invading Coprinian forces. Its fungal citizens are in dire straits, racked by the food shortages, poverty, and an influx of war refugees. Even worse, the corrupt occupiers exploit their power, hounding the native population. As a winter storm looms over the metropolis, NKPD homicide detective Henrietta Hoffman begrudgingly partners up with a mushroom-headed patrol officer Koji Namako to investigate the mysterious murders of fungal and half-breed children. Their investigation drags them deep into the seedy underbelly of a war-torn city, one brimming with the colonizers, criminal gangs, racial division, and moral decay. In order to solve this case and unravel the truth, Hoffman must challenge her past and embrace fungal ways. What she and Namiko uncover in the midst of this frigid wasteland will chill them to the core, but will they make it through the storm alive? Mushroom Blues by Adrian M. Gibson is a compelling debut novel that dives into a gritty, noir-inspired genre that Gibson calls a fungal punk. Gibson is the other half of the dynamic duo that hosts the SFF Addicts podcast that I mentioned before. The first thing I have to mention in this review is world building, as it really puts the mushroom in Mushroom Blues. At first, I was a little overwhelmed by the repetitive myco this and mushroom that, but with the help of the priming glossary in the front of the book, my shroom-inspired lexicon grew and the descriptions became easier to handle. Despite the initial shock, Mushroom Blues does a great job informing the reader how this strange world works, without info dumping all over your lap. This book took the idea of mushroom people and committed hard to the idea in a way that weirdly works for me. The fungals, aka mushroom people, felt realistic and biologically possible rather than creations of magic. While there is a magic system in play, it comes across as a more biological interpretation. From the very beginning, Mushroom Blues establishes its noir credibility with its opening line. No good day ever started with death before coffee. Much of this book is unvarnished as it takes on heavy themes like sexism, racism, colonialism, and other isms. Henrietta is a gender bend of the ideal noir brooding detective, while still being a fresh twist on the trope. Her flaws feel real and are heartbreaking. Her first-person perspective throughout the story really drew me into her turmoil and motivations. Her change throughout the story was organic and natural. On the subject of characters, Mushroom Blues sports a colorful cast of characters, many of which I loved seeing on the page. Especially Sissy, who is a cool glass of lemonade on a hot summer day. Ridgway is also a standout character that I thoroughly enjoyed every page he was on. Koji, the primary supporting character of the book, on the other hand, felt a little flat to me, as it was clear that his role in the story was mostly to be a fulcrum on which Henrietta changed. Despite that, he can be delightful and is the window from which I viewed a lot of the fungal society. I will say some of the book felt heavy-handed and awkward. Several scenes in the story felt like they were there just to show the dark themes, the result leaving a feeling that the message was a little too on the nose. I think this is because Gibson wanted to make a point on these themes, and they are well handled in other sections, but some observations characters make felt like they were added to the story just so that they could specifically teach the reader a certain lesson. There are several attempts in Mushroom Blues to compare Henrietta and her plight to that of the fungals, and I had a hard time buying it, but the book makes its case for we are all the same better in other instances. My last talking point comes from a moment that is about 5-6 into the book. I could see the message that Gibson was trying to tell, but how the situation came to be and how many of the characters reacted to that situation felt very contradictory to the tone of the story's current circumstances. I'm still conflicted on the execution, because how it was described was frankly beautiful and thoroughly enjoyable. Despite that, I still experienced a huge cognizant dissonance while reading through that section. Speaking of beautiful prose, there are many parts in this book where I had to simply sit and reread a well-executed line. The ceiling reached by the prose and descriptions in this story is impressively high. One of my personal favorites was, "Pain smeared its ugly form across his features, dragging him down like gravity." Mushroom Blues is a standout debut that combines classic noir elements with fresh twists, strong character development, and immersive world building. It's a slow burn with enough intrigue and suspense to keep readers hooked. I will never look at Mushrooms the same again. The two takeaways I have from reading Mushroom Blues are: 1, don't shy away from ambitious world building. Most readers in fantasy don't want another medieval Europe knockoff. They want something different, like the Fungal Verse. 2, invest page space into fleshing out antagonists as well as protagonists. While they don't need as much attention, a great, possibly relatable antagonist can really draw a reader into a conflict in a way that dark versus light can't always accomplish. My final read for the month of May was Vermilion Flames by Adam Fernandez. In the shadow of the ruined earth, the Republic and its church claim to offer safety and security while burning ideas and people alike. No moon or planet is free of the flames and bloodshed, even as rebel organizations, the Vermilion Coalition, seeks to dismantle the Republic's oppressive regime. On a terraformed Mercury, Kaya Al-Varden hopes to find the truth behind her mother's murder, a difficult task when everyone insists it was a tragic accident. When Kaya's adventurous spirit leads her into the forbidden Great Desert, she's sent to the Republic's capital on Mars to study under the watchful eye of the all-powerful church she despises. There she unravels the mysteries about her mother's life and faces a fall in line or risk everything to take up her mother's mantle. Silas Beckett, High Commander of the Pandora Fleet, a hero of the Republic, can feel his time is running out. Fighting terrorists has been his life's mission, but his nemesis, Hex, leader of the Vermilion Coalition, still eludes him. As his failures mount and his allies abandon him, he has few chances left to bring Hex to justice. Can Silas secure peace for his family and for the entire solar system? Vermilion Flame is the first book in the Midnight War series, an action-filled epic set long after the destruction of Earth. Vermilion Flames by Adam Fernandez masterfully blends intricate world-building with dynamic character development, offering a rich tapestry reminiscent of a sci-fi version of the late Roman Empire intertwined with a medieval Catholic church. The introduction to this universe is well-paced, gradually immersing the reader without overwhelming them. I loved the world-building as it felt both magical and realistic. I specifically latched onto the wordage around the plasma blades. As they were described to kindle to life, I could just picture it, this flaming plasma erupting from this hilt. However, the narrative stumbles slightly with the pacing of its plot twists. While many of the reveals were excellent and unexpected, I found multiple times where I was being hit in quick succession by multiple heavy plot turns, resulting in a lessened effect on me as the reader. I think the story's unfolding, though generally well-paced, could have benefited from either less of the heavy twists or more space between the reveals to maintain their impact. The strength of the book lies in its characters and their development. Kaya and Silas stand out, with Kaya initially appearing as the stronger of the two characters. As the story progresses, Silas's internal struggles and moral dilemmas make him increasingly compelling. The dialogue between the characters is sharp, effectively showcasing their personalities and growth, particularly Kaya's transition from youthful rebellion to serious activism, and Silas's conflict between personal beliefs and duty. I particularly enjoyed how Fernandez brought these very different stories to overlap in the Vermilion Flames. The supporting cast for each of these main characters is also strong, with Marcus, Silas's brother-in-law, likely becoming the crowd favorite. He is a fantastic foil to Silas's brooding demeanor. Each side character feels as real as a main character with their own problems and motivations that mesh or conflict with Kaya, Silas, or both in interesting ways. Fernandez's writing is generally strong, with well-executed action scenes and well-presented themes, but there are times when I felt a need for more varied language. Despite this, I still feel that there were many moments of well-done prose to balance it out. Overall, Vermilion Flames is a testament to Fernandez's ability to create an expansive and intricate world. Despite a few pacing issues with plot reveals, the novel's rich world-building and compelling characters make it a highly recommended read for sci-fi fans. The book sets the stage for an exciting series that I am eager to see where the story goes next. For my final book of May, my two takeaways are: 1. Authors should focus on developing multi-dimensional characters whose motivations and arcs evolve naturally over the course of the story. This approach helps readers invest emotionally in the characters' journeys. Both Kaya and Silas are great examples of this. And 2, aspiring writers can benefit from paying attention to word choice and avoiding repetitive language to maintain clarity. Descriptive, evocative writing enhances the reader's experience, while clear dialogue helps develop character relationship and advance the plot. As a final note, I wanted to tell you all about how inviting the indie author community is. Through my journey with these books, I've been in contact with a few of the authors, and it's crazy just how accessible they are. Shocker, they're real people, and they like to talk about their books. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank them, not only for giving us these fantastic stories, but also for eagerly participating in the community with us. Alright folks, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Author Adjacent. Thanks for hanging out with me today as I reviewed my 2024 May reads and shared what I learned from them. Once again, I'm Michael Vadney. If any of this was helpful or even just gave you a good chuckle, consider supporting the show by leaving a review on your podcast platform of choice or telling a friend about the show. For more Author Adjacent, you can follow me on X at Author Adjacent or shoot me an email at authoradjacent@gmail.com with your burning questions, comments, or topic ideas. New episodes drop every other week, so stay tuned. Now remember, the journey from writer to author might be long, but until then, let's be author adjacent together.